I want to offer my heartfelt prayers and condolences to the family members and the friends of those who died and were wounded in the recent mass murders. Sadly, it seems as reliably as the sun rising in the east and setting in the west, these sensationalized events lead to a lot of hyperbolic discussion. And I want to ponder that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. Yes, we read and study the Constitution. But today's kind of a somber message because we're talking about the taking of human life, the destroying of human lives. And that's not something we should take lightly. I want to reiterate my prayers and my condolences go out to the families that have lost loved ones, whose lives have been destroyed by the acts of these people. But rather than get into the political firestorm that always follows these events, I want to understand and I want to discuss what are the constitutional issues. What is the proper reaction to such a violent and in this case sensationalized infringement on the rights of others? One of the reasons why I didn't jump right on the social media and start commenting is I wanted time to stop, think, mourn for those who were lost, and to give a reasoned answer, not add to the hyperbolic frenzy that always comes out of these events. As I said, as reliably as the sun rising in the east, even before the bodies were cold, there were those calling for the infringement on the rights of others. Whether it be on their right to keep and bear arms or to simply be safe in their houses, properties, and effects from unreasonable search and seizure, their right to due process, all of these are now under attack. And in fact, even the idea of being able to speak up and offer an opinion other than take away people's guns seems to be under attack as well. As I said, these are tragedies to the families involved, but it's time we put this into a little bit of perspective. Your odds of being killed in a mass murder are not zero, but they certainly aren't as sensational or as great as the media would have you believe. And while the odds of you being affected by such a mass murder are extremely small, the consequences are really quite large. So it's worth not simply reacting, not emoting to the outrage at such an event, but that we stop, take a few minutes, and that we look at this with a little bit of ration and a little less passion. So what are the issues at hand from a constitutional standpoint? Yes, these men violated the rights of multiple citizens. There is no defense for what they did. It was wrong. And there are probably multiple reasons why they did this. Rather than looking for a quick, simple answer, let's be honest with ourselves. And there's a lot that goes into someone wishing to murder many, many people. Whether it's their hatred for a certain group of people or their desire to get their 15 minutes of fame. I believe even one of the attackers, the one in New Zealand, specifically committed a mass murder in order to get Americans to pass more gun control laws. Now, I don't know about you, but none of these seem quite rational to me. But the question is, what are we going to do about it? See, even before the bodies were cold, there were calls to infringe on the rights of everyday Americans. Innocent people. People who not only did not participate in this particular criminal act, but have no intention of ever doing so. It wouldn't even cross their mind. You see, the problem I keep running into is, as much as I wish to not have these events happen, I think we've lost the fact that the proper way of dealing with a crime is not to infringe on the rights of the innocent. Now, whether you want to carry a gun or not, whether you believe guns are good or evil, the question is, are we going to defend the rights of our fellow citizens, of our fellow human beings? Now, the police response time in at least one of these events was quite rapid. I think they got there in about a minute, and I congratulate them. But let's face it, if you have decided that you're going to rely on the government to protect you, you're out of control. You're now dependent on someone else to come protect you. And the only way that's going to work is if we live in a police state. And I don't think we want to do that either. And yes, there are people who mentally wish to hurt people. And I don't care if it's with guns, cars, explosives, or poisons. The issue is not the tool that they use. The fact is, we are a fallen race, and there will always be people in this world who wish to do harm to others. Pretending that we can get rid of it by taking away one of their tools, well, that's just folly. So as we have these discussions, whether it's online or with friends and family, let's try not to simply emotionally react to the pain we see and the pain we feel from the deaths of these fellow Americans. Let us protect the rights of others as well as our own. Because if we won't protect their rights, who'll be around to protect ours? If we're willing to ignore the rights of innocent people because they happen to own guns, what's to prevent others from ignoring our rights because of our political opinion? It all comes down to the same thing, folks. If we're going to live in a free country, that means we have to be willing to allow others to live in ways we disagree with. Now, whether you are arguing for or against gun control, remember, many of these mass murders come from people who are unwilling to live with people who they disagree with. When we cannot live together in peace, when we cannot allow others to disagree with us, when the only solution to disagreement is violence, our problem is not the tool. Our problem is society as a whole. So please, I urge you, let's pull some of the emotion out. Let's look at this rationally. Let's look at it reasonably. And let's look at some of the reasons that may have driven these people to wish to hurt others, not on the tool they happen to use. Let's face it, shouldn't we be just as animated about 30 some odd people being killed in major metropolitan areas as we are a sensationalized event because it's being broadcast on TV or over social media? It really comes down to that. You know, the fact that 30 people died the past weekend, it's a tragedy. The fact that tens and dozens of people die each and every weekend in our inner cities, and the fact that we don't care about it, is a travesty. Their deaths may be a tragedy, but the fact that we pay no attention to it is a travesty. Please stop being led around by people who have a political agenda. Let's look at the Constitution. Let's realize that we all have rights, and let's find ways to protect our right to life, our right to security in our own home, our right to be free from government intrusion, and our right to defend ourselves from people who wish to do us harm. So I hope this message touched you. I mean, let's face it, it's not an exciting, joyful message, but it's an important one. We need to learn to live together, or we're all going to be at each other's throats. Again, whether you think we should have more guns or less guns, or whether you want guns or your neighbor should have guns, if we're not willing to protect the rights of others, there'll be no one to protect our own rights. So here, check out some of these videos, see if you find them interesting. Please comment below. Let me know what you think. How do you react to these events? Most of all, I want to reiterate to the families and the friends that are victims of this horrible crime, I do feel for you, and I understand your desire to make something happen. We have to do something. I just want to make sure what we do isn't worse than doing nothing at all. I hope you'll join me again next time on the Constitution Study.